Hey everybody, it's Jordan here with Major Hi-Fi, back again with another video, and today we've got a brand new DAC amp from HiFiMan that has some wireless capabilities as well, and we'll get into all of that. But first, if you like what you're seeing on this channel, definitely like and subscribe down below. It'll help us make more videos like them in the future, and it'll help deliver them right into your feed. Now, when HiFiMan acquired Goldenwave a few years ago, it was clear that HiFiMan was dedicated to improving and developing their hardware line of DAC amps and what they could do. They have the Hymalaya chips, which now has the Pro, which is on the Serenade, which is what we're going to talk about today. But they also have a lighter version that goes on their more entry-level devices. So if you like what you've seen from the EF499 or EF500 with their DAC amp implementations, then I think these Goldenwave line options are going to really step up what those offer. And so I'm really excited to break down what the Serenade Wireless has to offer. It's a really nice piece of equipment and really convenient for people who want to do direct streaming over Wi-Fi or LAN to their device and keep things a little bit more simple than a full dedicated streamer. And we'll get into the specifics more as we break down the build, design, and sound quality. But let's get to the important stuff first. At $999, this is a step into the higher end category of HiFiMan's hardware offerings. And so let's just get into it. Let's see what the Serenade Wireless has to offer, and we'll start with what's in the box. In the box, you get the Serenade Wireless, as well as this handy box of different peripherals that includes QR codes to your manuals and warranty information, and then your power cable, USB cable, and a Wi-Fi antenna inside as well. All right, so let's talk about the build quality. Now, if you're familiar with the EF499 or the EF500 or some of HiFiMan's other DAC amps that fall in a little bit lower on the price scale, then you're probably used to a more shapely, modern design. And I do think they keep things modern with the Goldenwave line, except it's its own distinct look. Whether it's the Serenade or the Prelude, it goes for a more matte black and more sleek, modern type of design. And I really like the way it looks, and we'll get into the layout and how it all works together, but I think they've done a really good job at keeping this sophisticated and usable at the same time. Now, first of all, this is definitely a hefty device. As you can see, it's all metal, it's really high premium materials, and it's just not gonna go anywhere. You put it on your desk or you're inside your system or however you wanna use it, and it's gonna last you a long time. Now, getting into the layout of the device, you've got this little piece that extends out of the chassis that has your controls. You've got an input button, a select button, and an output button. It's very simple. You just toggle through until you get to the desired input or output or whatever setting you want to choose and the select button. Then on the front, you've got your 3 headphone outputs. You've got an XLR balanced output, a 4.4 millimeter balanced output, and as well, you've got a 1/4 inch unbalanced output. And then on the other side, you've got your volume pot. And in the middle here is your LCD display that lets you know which output, which input you're using, what different codec is going on, all sorts of playback information on that screen. But something I like about it that's unique is it doesn't go for the full animated UI type of display. It keeps things simple with that LCD panel and just provides text and keeps things low key and understated. On the back, you've got the power input, you've got your LAN input for any sort of wired connectivity you want to use, as well as on top of that, your input for the Wi-Fi antenna. So if you want to use it wirelessly, you'll want to use the antenna for your strongest connection. And then you've got a USB input, you've got a coaxial input and an optical input. And we'll get into this in design. The different inputs have different specs to them, different playback specs. So depending on how high a bit rate or sample rate you want to get to, you'll want to decide how you're going to input your audio to the device. And then as far as outputs go, you've got a regular unbalanced analog output, which is an RCA connection, or balanced XLR outputs that can go to speakers or any sort of system where you want to use it as a DAC preamp and get the signal going into a powered set of speakers. And one extra interesting thing I want to note is there's actually an analog input. So if you wanted to bypass the DAC and just use the amp, that is something you can do as well. And that's just something I really like about the device, and it'll help us transition into the design a little bit, is how versatile it is. You can use it in a lot of different ways, and they do it through hardware integrations rather than through having to sift through tons of settings. So I really appreciate the thought that went into designing it this way, and I think you will too. All right, so we kind of talked about design a little bit in our last section, but let's really break down what's going on internally with the Serenade Wireless. The heart of the system is the Hymalaya Pro R2R DAC that HiFiMan has implemented. It's a top-of-the-line R2R DAC, and it sounds pretty good. And we'll get into all of that in the sound impressions, of course. And like I said, with all of that technology, you also get more expanded and kind of differing input quality solutions. And let's break down kind of how that works. So if you use the USB input, you're going to get up to 32-bit PCM performance all the way up to 384 kilohertz, and then DSD64 up to DSD256. Then using coaxial or optical, that's going to limit you to 192 kilohertz at 32-bit PCM, and you're going to be limited to DOP64 for DSD possibilities. But if you really want to spec out your performance, definitely use the wireless or wired connections and do your music over internet connection. That will get you 32-bit PCM up to 768 kilohertz and get you DSD capabilities all the way up to DSD 512. And while it would have been nice to see HiFiMan include those highest possible specs in their USB input, it's clear they want you to use this as an internet-enabled device. It's going to be really quiet. That's how they designed it to be used. And so that's where you're going to get your best overall performance. As for the amplifier part of the device, the Serenade Wireless uses a Class A circuit based on a fully discrete transformer amplifier. And then in another effort to keep things totally quiet, they use a 50-watt toroidal transformer. And again, using Wi-Fi, using wireless, keeping the signals shielded, that is how they're trying to keep things super quiet, super undistorted, and just perfect for audiophile listening. Finally, in terms of output power, it can do 4,000 milliwatts balanced and up to 2,800 milliwatts unbalanced. So it's a pretty powerful device. It should be able to drive just about anything you need. Anything I threw at it, it drove with ease. And so I was really impressed with the amplifier section, the DAC section independently with each other, and also how they worked together. And that's going to bring us into our sound impressions. All right, so how does the Serenade Wireless sound? We're going to break it up into bass, mid-range, treble, and soundstage as usual, and so let's start with the bass. Now, overall, I found this to be a pretty warm to neutral leaning type of amplifier, and so it pairs really well with HiFiMan's own headphones. So the first headphone I wanted to try with it was the Aria Unveiled. Given the price range of each, I thought that's a pretty standard pairing that people are going to want to put together, and so in testing it, I was really pleased with the synergy these two devices had. Now, the Aria Unveiled is a little bit brighter, a little bit leaner, and more detail-oriented. So when you got this a little bit more warm approach from the Serenade Wireless, I thought they worked together to create a really balanced and nuanced sound signature. The bass isn't necessarily elevated too high, considering it's warm. It's more timbrally warm. So the bass response is really nice. It's musical, but refined at the same time. And I found that balance to be really good. It gave you a lot of detail. Sub-bass information is really present. It's fast, it's dynamic. You're getting really good punchiness out of the bass response. But again, there's not necessarily an overstatedness to it. It's refined. That's the word I want to use. It doesn't beat you over the head with detail or with dynamics. It just is natural and feels right. I really enjoyed the balance that they created here. And I think this comes from being really clean with the mid-bass section. Even though they go for this warmer sound signature, they don't bloat things at all in the mid-bass. It stays really elevated in a tasteful way. It just brings out a little bit of warm timbre without adding too much darkness or too much muddiness to the sound. Listening with the Aria Unveiled, I was really impressed by how it took the more light, a more lean bass approach and gave it a little bit more body, a little bit more character, and a little bit more warmth in a way that kept the detail-oriented nature of the headphone intact while adding some musicality and some feeling to it. Like the bass, the mid-range is also a little bit warm feeling, but again, not overly so. Vocals have plenty of room to feel natural and well spaced out. It's not forward in the way that some warmer headphones will be. It's again, natural. It's presented equally within the frequency response, but again, it's timbrally warm. And I think that comes from that mid-bass, lower mid-range area that keeps things feeling a little bit more musical, a little bit more lively. I don't want to make it sound like it won't work well with warm headphones. I tried it with the Meze 109 Pro, for example, which I find to be a little bit of a warm-leaning headphone, and I found them to work well together also. This created a more warm environment, so it's better for somebody who wants a warm sound signature, but I didn't think that it added any bloat or any sort of muddiness to the sound signature. I thought it worked together really well. The way that the warmth of the mid-range interacts with the warmth of the headphone was in a musical way, not in a way that is overdone or steps on any detail retrieval capabilities. And that brings us to the treble response, which again, given it's a little bit warmer leaning response, it is on the relaxed side. But don't take that to mean that there isn't energy in the top end. There's plenty. You're going to get that sizzle and crash when it's called for. You're going to get, really good attention to detail and plenty of headroom with the treble extension. So I thought that was really well done. It's just never really any sibilance. It's never really any overexcitement. You're never going to be like, oh my God, I just got hit in the head by a giant crash cymbal. It's, again, refined, understated, but still present. And so I think the way that HiFiMan towed the line in terms of their entire frequency response aims to be a little bit more neutral warm, a little bit more pleasing, and something to complement their headphones tonality pretty well. Finally, getting into the soundstage, I was really impressed with the sense of space and sound localization that this was capable of. With the Hymalaya Pro and that R2R DAC technology, I think they've really created a sense of space. It feels like you're in the room. I talk about this often on this channel. It feels like you're in the room with the musicians, and that's not always easy to come by at this price point. I do get a sense that width is prioritized over imaging, and so that's going to vary based on the headphone you used. With the Aria Unveiled, I thought that I had never heard it sound as wide, and that's saying something because the Unveiled is one of the wider sounding headphones at its price point, and so together I found that they created a really wide and engulfing and engaging soundstage. And even if the imaging isn't the most precise, it still gives you that in the room feeling, and overall I really enjoyed how it sounded. At just under $1,000, I was really impressed with what HiFiMan has done here with the Serenade Wireless. I think it does a really good job at having a lot of functionality, a lot of versatility, while presenting a sound signature that has character and makes itself unique in the price point. While some might wish that there were more integrated streaming features, I find that keeping it simple with just Wi-Fi and wired connections, going from a PC, a computer, a NAS drive, anything like that, keeps things simple and keeps you focused on the music listening experience. Overall, I really enjoyed the balance of features and sound that HiFiMan has accomplished with the Goldenwave Serenade Wireless. It's a warmer sound, it complements other headphones really well, and I think it's worth giving it a listen and a test to see if it's right for you, especially if you're somebody who doesn't want a full-on streamer, who just wants it to connect with their NAS drive or computer or whatever streaming device you're using without it becoming an over-the-top, feature-dense device. And so I think if that's what you're looking for, just a simple but modern device to add into your audiophile system, I think this is going to be a great option for you. Alright, so if you liked what you saw in today's video, definitely like and subscribe down below. It helps us make more videos just like them in the future, and it'll deliver them right into your feed. As always, I'm Jordan with Major Hi-Fi, and I'll see you next time.